Hello, this is Jonathan Agnew with another offering from the Test Match Special archive as we go back to another classic view from the boundary. In 1966, England were crowned football world champions with the likes of Bobby Moore, Geoff Hurst and Gordon Banks, leading them to victory at Wembley Stadium. Well, another linchpin of that team with his famed tenacity and toothless smile in midfield was Nobby Stiles. Mancunian born and bred, Stiles played for Manchester United over 300 times and he's a legend in the North West. As well as that Old Trafford, Nobby was a regular at the cricket ground as well. In 1997, during the Ashes Test against Australia, he popped along to the old commentary box to join Graham Fowler and Neville Oliver to take a view from the boundary.
Well, welcome back to Old Trafford, and the gentleman who's sitting on my right has had a long association with Old Trafford, but a slightly different one, the soccer one. Nobby Stiles. Nobby, welcome.
Thanks, Greg. Nice to be here.
You haven't exactly travelled a long way to get here today, have you?
One stop down on the metro. Nice and handy.
Well, it's probably a good job that you one stop down on the metro, because if you were in the car this morning, you would have listened to Jonathan Agnew wind me up superbly. He's given me some information about you, Nobby, and I'll just read out what it says. It says you're a keen cricket supporter and follow Essex.
I am, but it's Lancashire.
Yes, right, that's one out of the way. Played village cricket as a youngster at bowling off spin.
Well, the village was a district called Colliers in Manchester, which was about a mile from Piccadilly, and I wouldn't exactly call it a village.
It's not really a greenfield side, is it? No, this is a good one. Played double bass in a jazz band called In the Swing. You see, this is where you begin to realise I am being stitched up. The next one now, I don't think you need to answer that one, Nobby. Next one down said breeds Irish wolfhounds, and actually won bronze medal for best of breed at Crufts. True or false?
Not true, but I did have a Dalmatian, and he caused me a lot of problems.
Right. For Irish wolfhound substitute, daft Dalmatian.
Yes.
And then then it goes on to say that you did many daring deeds for charity, and I do know you do work for charity, but amongst those you performed a free-fall parachute jump from 10,000 feet and also water skied barefoot for 500 metres.
Well, I never did a parachute jump because with these my eyesight, I would be very worried. And what was the other one?
Water skied barefoot. No,
the nearest I came to that was we were in Surfers Paradise with Manchester United in 1967, and I didn't even see Surfers Paradise because my relatives were there, went over there in '49, so I was looking at all the kangaroos and that. You know.
Well, talking about animals, the last one, and I really should have clicked at this stage, shouldn't I? It said, spent a night locked in the chimpanzee house at Tycross Zoo, which raised £7,000. Thank you very much, Jonathan Agnew. Now, we can actually get down to, not exactly serious stuff, Nobby, but Old Trafford football ground, for those people who don't know, is literally 800 yards from Old Trafford cricket ground. And I'd a guess, and although you'll probably tell me in a minute, have you spent a fair amount of time on the cricket ground?
Oh yeah, ever since a little boy. I go back as far as when I was 6. I used to come down to Old Trafford, and because the season used to start as well over at Old Trafford, they'd play the first sim against the reserves, so I'd come here on a Saturday and then go over to Old Trafford to watch them. Right. And bank holiday Mondays, Lancashire, Yorkshire, and that was tremendous.
Yeah, so you've been a big lover of the game.
Oh yeah, I mean my heroes were Brian Statham and Roy Tattersall at that time. Yeah.
I believe you actually was it Brian Statham you saw playing his first Roses match stadium?
That's what he told me. I was fortunate enough to be here a few years ago. We've been invited down and I had lunch with Brian and Roy Tattersall, and I must have drove him mad, because I kept saying I can remember this, I can remember that, and I was saying that I was on the boundary over there on the far side, and I said, Brian, you were in the last hour facing Freddie Truman, you and Bob Berry. And I said, you held out till the end of it. And he said that was my first Roses match.
Right.
So I must have drove him daft.
It's funny, but you probably remember more about that than he did.
I probably would, actually, yeah. And then I said I'd listen to him, the radio, about 5 in the morning before I went to school. It was the test matches out in Australia, and he said that was his first test series. I think Roy Tattersall and himself got flown out. Right. I'm not too sure.
Having had this long passion with cricket, did you actually ever play as a boy? I know that at a very early age you were playing soccer.
Yeah, the school I went to was St Patrick's in Colliers, and we played both both things. But I went for trials for Manchester boys at cricket, but obviously with my eyesight wasn't very good at it, and didn't get through the trials. And then obviously I went for trials for Manchester boys and was fortunate enough to go on from there. You know,
that'd probably be about the same age, would it?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, under 14.
Under 14. What? But you couldn't manage to play to the club cricket after that?
No way. I mean, the grounds we played on was red shale, red wreck. I mean, the ball could go anywhere. And with my eyesight the way it was, I wouldn't see it anyway, you know.
You'd have been a bit better off today, though, because you've had up-to-date modern contact lenses, which...
Well, fortunate enough for me in the football in the 60s, that was when I first started to wear contact lenses. And Manchester United were very good at that time because I was really struggling. I had to go backwards to come forwards. And without the contact lenses, I'd have been really struggling, you know.
Yeah, and I've spoken at dinners with Dennis Law on a few occasions, and he often tells a story about your early contact lens wearing escapades.
Dennis, well, we had a few contact. We had slight bit of contacts in the England-Scotland games those days, you know. And Dennis used to say it was my eyesight that was to blame, but I think it was the passion of the England-Scotland, you know.
You just wanted to get one back at Dennis, did you?
Well, if you can get one back at Dennis, you're doing well, you know. But when it was England-Scotland, yeah, that was very important.
Right. So, but talking about going back to cricket, you've obviously loved cricket. Do you still watch when you can?
Yes, very much so. I watch all the test matches. I get down when I possibly can. As I said, I live one stop down, so many a time I'll just come in on the metro and just sit on the far side and just watch on my own. It's great.
I mean, one of my highlights as a child, it was, and it had to come up in conversation, was the 1966 World Cup final. That really stood out in my memory. And I'll tell you this, you might enjoy it or not, but you're actually my mother's favourite.
Well, I think it's the amazing thing was after the World Cup final in '66, I remember going to Sale Locarno, and it was a bingo night, and I was presenting some prizes or whatever, and I got more kisses that night off grandmothers. I must have pulled every grandmother in England, you know. I think it reminded them of their husbands with no teeth or whatever. So,
well, I mean, that's one of my great childhood memories, is the '66 World Cup final. But in your childhood, do you have any massive sporting memories, particularly involving cricket? I mean, you remember coming down here, but is there anything that stands out, any boyhood heroes?
Obviously Dennis Compton. It was before my time, but as I said, that was the times when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. As I say, Brian Statham, Johnny Wardle from Yorkshire. I can remember listening to, as I said, the test matches in Australia, Johnny Wardle playing. Yeah. Jack Aiken of Lancashire, you know, and the slips and that. And they're the memories you have. And I always remember Alan Wharton in sixes. Right. It was about for Lancashire, and I used to love that. And I actually said it. I spoke to him just before, not long before he died, and I said I can remember that. He said, "Well, I didn't hit that many," but to me, he was hitting them all the time. You know?
Yeah. It's amazing what your memory does to you. You can. Actual reality of some things is not what your memory tells you it is.
That's right. I mean, people say to me these days, you know, I can remember that and such, and your mind. It seems to tell different things to you, you know what I mean, because time goes by, you know. So, but it's nice people to talk to me about it, you know, all the different things, you know.
I bet you can remember winning the World Cup final.
Oh yeah, I mean, that was the greatest day, obviously, in my football life, and that in the '68 European Cup final, obviously, being a Manchester lad. But no, I mean, the elation or whatever, you know, being the best. It was tremendous, but it wasn't a case of that. It was the support we got from the people. It just carried you on and carried you on. And there was a bit of that last year with Euro '96. In '66 it was the same. And when you get the support like you do here, the adrenaline goes. It makes you do more, better than you can ever think you can do. You know. And so obviously it's great.
How much did Wembley count towards the World Cup victory? If that game had been played, say, in, Germany or Holland, I'm not saying the result would have been any different, but playing in front of a home crowd, was that a substantial ingredient?
Oh, of course it is. I mean, it's like anything else. I'm sure it's the same out in Australia. If you've got the massive crowd and that support that's there, as I say, you can do things that you don't think you can do. The energy is amazing.
I've got to tell you, Nobby, I'm a great fan of yours, and I remember the 1966 World Cup vividly, and you're a pugnacious little man, and I always used to think, well, that it looked like a bulldog the way you attacked. But I've got to ask you about full-time, 2-2. And how did you feel when you had to line up for extra time? And that must be dreadful for a sportsman to have given your all and then realise when the final whistle goes that there's more to come.
I always remember, obviously, I was in the wall and I was lining the wall up from the free kick that went in, and when it's gone in, obviously, they're in the ascendancy because, you know, they've got it back. We're deflated. I always remember going over to Alf Ramsey, walked over to Alf Ramsey, Wolf McGuinness was there, he was part of the squad, Harold Shepherdson, the trainer, they're coming out towards us. And a lot of the lads were wanting to go down and get massaged, lie down and get massaged. And if you ever see a photograph, there's only one person on the ground in the England side, and that is Bobby Moore. And Bobby's not actually looking for a rub, Bobby's just sat there, as usual, enjoying himself. And Alf Ramsey came over, and the lads were wanting to go down, and Alf Ramsey said no. He said, look at the Germans. And we looked over at the Germans, and every one of them was flat out getting rubbed. Psychologically, he got us. He picked us, you know, they're shattered. They're shattered. He picked us up and he said, now go out and win the game. He said, what you've been doing for the last 10 minutes is trying not to lose it. And what he meant was we were kicking the ball anywhere, get it in the stands, kicking anywhere, keep the ball, keep it, and go and win it again, which he had been doing. That's what we did. And it was the same with Matt Busby in '68. They were so different people, completely. And they both said exactly the same thing. For the last 10 minutes, you've been playing not to lose the game, be positive about it, go and get the ball, pass it, keep it, make them chase us.
You mentioned Alf Ramsey. Alf Ramsey was a great supporter of yours.
That's right.
It seemed that whenever Nobby Stiles was being talked about being dropped or whatever, Alf Ramsey was the man who stood up and said, no, Nobby must be in the team.
Well, I didn't realise this until later. I saw him talk on the television about it, but I didn't realise much later that after the game against Argentina, but the game before Argentina, I'd been in a bit of trouble with the French game. And
a bit of trouble.
Well, you know, it was a bit of a dodgy tackle, say, and Frenchman got injured.
The contact lenses had slipped.
No. People say that to me. They say, "Well, you know, with your eyesight, you must miss a tackle." And I say, "Well, does Bobby Charlton? If Bobby Charlton it's under shot goals, did he all go on the target?" And I said, "Well, tackles is the same. They can't all be on the target, you know, because it's a matter of timing or whatever." But Alf Ramsey, by all accounts, the selectors said they were going to drop me for the quarterfinals against Argentina. And by all accounts, Alf Ramsey stood up to them and said that he would resign if I didn't play. And I didn't know this. But for a man to do that for you, obviously, is unbelievable. And in the dressing room just before the game, as we're going out in the tunnel, Harold Shepherdson, Les Cocker, the trainers, who were great people, came to me and they said, "Look, Alf has been absolutely brilliant for you. Don't let him down." And please God, I didn't.
What was it like for the guys to be in the squad but didn't actually play in the final? They must have felt a huge part of it, but also not quite part of it. I mean, the one I particularly remember was like Jimmy Greaves.
Well, Jimmy, again, as I say, what happened, Jimmy played in the 3 opening games, but Jimmy got injured against France. He had a cut on his instep. But I also remember Jimmy, obviously, we had 5 world-class players in our team. We had Gordon Banks, the great Bobby Moore, Bobby Charlton, Ray Wilson, and Jimmy Greaves. And Jimmy, obviously, as I say, was one of the 5 great players. So obviously, he was very disappointed, Jimmy. And but actually, again, if you go back over the tape and you see, actually, Jimmy Greaves came on to me, put his arms around me, and said, "Keep him going." Now, Jimmy, I know he was very disappointed. But for the rest of the lads in the squad of 22 players, and we have it now when we ever see each other meet up again, the bonding that was there was unbelievable. If you hit one of us, you hit all of us.
Yeah.
You know, not just the lads. So it's great when we get together, which is every now and again, about every 5-10 years or whatever. The squad, if we get the squad of 22, like Ron Spring, who's Kate Kellick, Peter Bonetti, Jerry Byrne, Ian Callaghan, it's like family. And Alf Ramsey developed this thing between us. I don't know how he did it, but the spirit was absolutely unbelievable.
I think that's one thing that runs through all sports, team sports, that if you've got a successful team, then the actual spirit that's there is something that never goes away. In my own case, Mike Gattin is a very special person to me in cricket. If it wasn't for Mike Gattin, I wouldn't have scored 200 in a test match at Madras. It was Mike Gattin who got me there, and he actually got a double century as well. And there's a special bond. Now, that's just from one 2-1 game, but to actually win the biggest trophy in the world, then you must have an incredible bond between all of you.
Oh, the spirit was absolutely unbelievable. I always remember Alf Ramsey after the game against Portugal. I got a knock in the last 10 minutes. They're trying to score, get an equaliser. Ball's got knocked into the box, and I've gone ahead it 2-1 in minutes to go. And Gordon Banks has come. He's hit me in the back with his knee, and he's punched for the ball, and he's punched me in the ear as well. I've gone down. I don't know where to hold. After the game, I'm looking forward to a celebration because we're in the final. Because we'd had a great celebration after the Argentinian game. We're in the semi-finals. We stayed in the Hendon Hall, a lot of friends in. No ladies, just friends in. Had a big sing-song, got well jarred. It's all sports, isn't it? It's all sports.
Very professional. Yeah.
And then I'm looking forward to having a few drinks. And I've gone back to the hotel. I've got to get treatment on my knee. I've got treatment on my back. I'm having my hair done, and I'm looking forward to going out and having a few jars with the lads. And the doctor says, by the way, he says you can't. He said I've got to put an injection in your ear. He said because if you don't, it's going to be a cauliflower. He said, but I said fine. I said, but I'm going for a drink now. He said you can't have a drink.
Well, don't put the injection in there.
I said that. He said, but no. He said, do you want to have a colour? I said, no, I'm ugly enough anyway, so do without it. So anyway, he did it, and I walked back in, and I'm thinking that the lads are going to be enjoying themselves. I can't even have a drink. And Alf Ramsey, I'll never forget. Alf Ramsey stood there as I came in. He was waiting for me, and he said, "Gentlemen," he said, "Mate, now you may have 2 drinks." He said, and I mean 2 drinks. Not like on Saturday.
when you had 200.
When you were all a little bit merry. And he said, he said on Saturday, he said, we are going to win the World Cup. Brilliant. He said, and I mean win the World Cup. He said, and then I shall make sure you are permanently drunk.
Oh, it's probably a good job that you did have the injection in your ear. I mean, you have to look after your ears, don't you, to get your glasses on?
Well, if that happens, and I have Evander Holyfield, they'll be all right to keep slipping, wouldn't they? So.
Nobby, if I throw you a name, give me a reaction. Georgie Best.
I mean, genius, absolute genius. Yeah. I mean, terrific. I mean, such a great player, could do anything. Great tackler. I mean, people say, "Oh, he got the bounce of the ball when he's going past you." It was a great tackler, great balance.
Loved life.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, he was the first superstar. How do you cope with that? I mean, he was the time of the Beatles.
He was the 5th Beatle, really, wasn't he?
Yeah, really. I mean, how do you cope with that at his age? But
well, you probably follow him round and.
No, I'm a little bit older.
Man United. Whether you live in Australia, or you live here, or you live on the moon, you'd have to be aware of Manchester United. What makes them a great club?
I'm biased. I mean, I've been a supporter since I was a kid. I remember listening to the 1948 Cup final when I was 6 years old, and as I said, Manchester, Lancashire, right through it. And so it is special, and it goes back. And I think obviously Matt Busby has a great importance to it. He's the man who developed it. I mean, as I said, I joined Manchester United in '57. I was there 8 months. When the Munich air crash happened, they were all my idols. Little Eddie Coleman from Salford, Snakehips to call him, he was my idol. So to go there and be a part of that was tremendous. But as you say, there's a magnetism about it because when they play, the supporters won't allow. They've got to play football. They've got to knock the ball about. They've got to play. They've got to be attractive. They can't be negative. They can't play long ball stuff. They've got to play. They've got to be attractive. And it's always been the same. And especially with Matt Busby, many a time, winning 5-4, he'd always say go out and score more. If you got to, he would never close a game up. He always wanted to go and win it. And as I said, I went to Australia in '67. We toured Australia for 5.5 weeks all over the place. And it was absolutely amazing. I mean, as far as it goes down, I mean, everywhere we went, there was United supporters.
There's probably as many Manchester United supporters in Australia as there are in England.
Well, there's probably as many Manchester United supporters in Siberia as there is in England. I mean, it's just one of those clubs that just seems to capture public imagination. Because they are fabulously successful, are they not?
Oh, I mean, before when I was at Manchester United, as I say, as a youngster, I knew everybody in the club. I knew everybody, the laundry women, everybody, the groundsman, terrific. But now it's so big, it's grown so huge. because of, as I say, there's a glamour about them, whatever way it is, but there's a glamour.
Nobby, you mentioned, sorry Graham, but I did want to go back to that, I mean, it's a sad part of the history, but the Munich air disaster, what sort of a pull did that throw over the club, and how long did it take to throw it off?
It's amazing because we were training in the afternoon. Those days, as apprentices, we was ground staff. Those days they called it. You didn't train in the mornings. You did your work. You cleaned the boots. You did the dressing rooms. You did the gym. You did the stand sweeping. And then they told us we trained in the afternoon. Bill Ingles, the second team trainer, came and said the plane's crashed.
Just that simple.
He said the plane's crashed. We don't know about. I got on the bus and I went into town. The Evening Cron at that time. You saw the people who were dead. Oh. I got on the bus. I live about a mile out from Piccadilly. I got off the bus, got off the bus, went right into my church, St Patrick's, and I sat there for an hour and a half and I just cried. Oh. But Jimmy Murphy was the man who at that time was absolutely fantastic. He kept the club together. He was brilliant. I mean, he actually took them to the cup final that year with a load of youngsters and lads he brought in, and he kept the club going. It was him. I mean, it was so down. I mean, St Maart, as you say, St Maart is tremendous, but at that time Jimmy was absolutely fantastic.
There was at the time, and the reason I know this is because I now live in Durham, but Bishop Auckland actually gave some players to Manchester United.
Right. There was Bob Hardesty, and there was Warren Bradley, and Mike Pinner, the goalkeeper.
Yeah, and a couple of years ago, Bishop Auckland actually got into financial difficulties for one. I think it was an insurance case, if I'm not right. And they sort of got in touch with Manchester United.
Reciprocated.
Manchester United sent the full team up, and they put an exhibition game on. So that it was such a strong feeling that it just exists.
Well, I played with Bob Hardesty. Bob Hardesty was in England Amateur International. They'd won the what do you call it, the FA Amateur Cup for years and years. And Bob Hardesty came, and I was 15 years of age now, and I was playing in the reserves at Manchester United. And it was great because I had an experienced player playing alongside me. I mean, the sad thing was, as I say, Munich happened. But what happened was then he had to bring in players like Noel Cantwell, Maurice Setters and that. But they were older players, and you learned off them. I mean, there was a little fella called Ernie Taylor who played in the 1953 Cup final for Blackpool. He brought him in, Jimmy Murphy. And these experienced players tell you a lot of things. You know?
How quickly was it after that you ended up playing regular first team?
Well, I made my debut when I was 18 against Bolton Wanderers, and so it was quite quick, really, considering.
No, I'm going to find it an absolute nuisance when the cricket starts again, because I've got a million things I want to ask you, but I've got to ask you a more general soccer question. When you were playing, there was hardly a European to be seen in the English league situation, and now, whichever team I look at, it's a matter of whether you've got 2 or 3 or 4. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I tend to think it's not a good thing. I don't think every foreign player that comes over is the best. If the best are coming, you'll learn off them. There's no doubt about it. It's like the lad Zola from at Chelsea, Cantona who's at United. I think I worry a bit because you learn off good players.
It's a bit like cricket. They looked outside their own backyards for years to the West Indies and wherever they could grab players.
I think that's the danger.
Do you think that is
the danger? Neville. Yeah, I think that's the danger because, as I say, if they're all good players, fine, you're going to learn off them. But if they're not, you're going to halt the progress of the youngsters coming through.
I mean, something. Durham University, Newcastle United train there, and their reserves don't even play in a competition. They don't play in a league. And I think that's a great sadness because even if they've got good players in the club, how can the young learn with them? Well, that's what they tend to do is it appears that if they need a player in the first team, people seem to go and buy one rather than bring somebody up from the
that's what I'm saying. When I was at Manchester United, I came into the reserves when I was 16 years of age and played there for the next 2 years. But I was playing with older players, experienced players, and you learn off that. You gain from that because, as I say, you're raw and you want to go into things and you've got to think about things. But I definitely agree with Neville. I don't necessarily think that all these foreign players are going to be good for the game. I think in a little bit later, you could see the problems coming.
You'll harvest the despair, perhaps.
Well, I think I can only go off Manchester United. Beckham, you've got your Beckham, Butts, little Scholesy, the Neville brothers. They had Cantona there, and Cantona was a great influence on them. They learned from him and that, and they've got other good players there with him. but they will come on from that, gaining from it. But I think if you bring too many in, it's going to be detrimental. I do believe that.
Manchester United have always had a good youth policy, haven't they?
Well, to be fair,
system.
They did, but for many years, it faltered. After Matt Busby and it faltered for a spell, and under Alex Ferguson had done an absolutely tremendous job. I mean, in the time he's been there, he absolutely transformed it. Absolutely brilliant. And that's not just done very easy. It's not just done overnight. He works at it, and his planning is absolutely tremendous. And what he has, as I say, what he's done, he's built for the future. I mean, you sell Gillespie for £1 million to Newcastle, and all these other players who are there. But you sell a player for £1 million. That guarantees your youth policy for the next 5 or 6 years. It's tremendous.
You've been studying this game closely. What do you think? Give us a reasoned opinion about how it's going.
I'm worried. I'm worried. I must be honest. The press got on my nerves because they built the England lads up. They won the first test, which is great. The England lads know what they're in for. The Australians are a great side, so they know what they're in for. But we're going to roll them over and all this, the others and that. It's a different game. I was here yesterday, and England had a good start, but they didn't have to. They had to work for it like anything. I don't think there was anything given away, and there's pressure on it there. And then not the ball that got Stewart. There was one before that, and it turned so wicked off one. I thought, Christ, no, he's not it again, is he? And the doubts started coming in. So, I mean, he's took some stick, and I thought that was tremendous. I mean, he kept plugging away down there, and McGrath's coming in from here. It was unbelievable. He didn't give nothing away.
Nobby, do you study Australian soccer at any distance? This wonderful new manager we've got, and
Terry Venables is a great manager. I mean, he did a tremendous job for England in Euro '96 because what he did was very similar to Ralph Ramsey. What he does, he makes you strong from the back first. You don't lose games. You've got to make sure you don't lose games in the first place, and then you can come on and get stronger from that. And Terry is very good. I also have a friend out there, a friend in Perth. Played in the 90s with me in the 68. He didn't play in the final, but he played in the games approaching the final, which I call Franny Burns. And Franny's been out there for years, and I believe I think he's doing quite well out there, Franny. So I'll look out for that, But I think Terry. I think they've got a great manager there.
Actually, they've got a terrific record since he's been out there. I heard you talk with great love of Matt Busby and Alf Ramsey. It must be a terrific pleasure and a wonderful confidence thing for a player to have such a wonderful manager.
Yeah, of course it is. As I say, and you get this belief in it that where you're going out is what you're doing is right. And as I said before, nobody gave England a shout in the Euro '96 before, and especially after the Switzerland game when they'd had all the trouble in China. And the Switzerland game, England are not going to. We had the same in '66 in the opening game against Uruguay. Makes you stronger, but as I say, you build from the back first. And you don't lose goals, and then your great players will win your games, like Gascoigne did against Scotland, scores a great goal, lifts you. Then you start to go.
I think we'd have called you the pocket rocket in Australia. 5'6", 10 stone 10.
No, I was.
No,
I'm delighted about that. I'm 5'5.5".
Oh well, hang on, I'll rip this bit of paper up here. It was given to me by Jonathan Agnew, who seems to insist that you were locked in a zoo cage at one stage.
And I'm listening on the radio when I'm in the car, and I'm listening to this, and I'm thinking this fella's serious. I'll know better now.
Barefooted water skiing. I can't tell you what a pleasure it's been to talk to you, Nobby. As I said, I admired you from a very great distance for a long time, and when they told me you were coming up, I had to get special dispensation from the boss Peter Baxter to sit and be part of the chat. It's been a great thrill for me, I can tell you.
I've enjoyed it very much. Thanks, Noel.
Well, lovely memories there from Nobby. If you're wondering, that test was won by Australia by 268 runs, with Steve Waugh scoring 100 in each innings, and they went on, of course, to win the series 3-2.